Good morning, scholars. Go ahead right now in your notes, complete the do now for today. You can use a calculator, show all your work in your notes, and then enter your answers when you're done. Alright, so the first do now problem is a review from our algebra unit. To simplify, we're going to use the distributive property. I'm going to distribute this 1/2 times 6x and 1/2 times -8. 1/2 times 6, or half of 6, is 3x. Again, you can work that out by hand if you wanted to. This is how we would do it. 1 times 6 is 6 over 2, and that's how we got 3. Half of -8 is a minus, or -4. And then I'm distributing this -2. -2 times x is -2x. And then the tricky part, -2 times -5 is a positive 10. Combine like terms, I have a positive 3x and a -2x. So 3 minus 2 is 1, or just 1x. I have a -4 and a positive 10. Since they're different signs, I'm going to subtract. 10 minus 4 is 6. And since I have more positives, our simplified expression is x plus 6. Be sure you check and correct and fix any mistakes for each problem. Number 2 is a review from our percents unit a while back. So number 2 says, Jacayla went to the mall with $75. She spent 30% on a pair of pants. She spent the rest on 3 shirts that were all the same cost. How much did each shirt cost? Automatically, I know I'm looking for how much one shirt cost. Each shirt, that's singular, I'm looking for one shirt. So first I need to figure out what the 30% of 75 is, how much she spent on the pants. So my first step is to find how much she spent on the pants. So percents, I can use a proportion. Percent always out of 100. X out of our total 75. I'm going to cross multiply. 100 times x is 100x. 75 times 30 is 2,250. Divide both sides by x, or 100, to get x by itself, and I get x equals $22.50. But again, that was just step 1. That's how much the pants cost. In the problem, I see it says she spent the rest on 3 shirts. So this word, the rest, that signals me to subtract. So my total was 75. She already spent $22.50 on pants. So when I subtract, I need to borrow. 10 minus 5 is 5, 2, 5. So this means she spent the rest, $52.50, on 3 shirts. But again, the question asks how much did each shirt cost? So my last step I need to do is divide. All of my shirts cost $52.50. I'm going to divide that by 3, and I get $17.50 for each shirt, or one shirt. Before moving on, pause the video and correct any mistakes. Alright, so each day we're going to be practicing some sort of number problems. Yesterday, for Monday, we're always going to do integers. On Tuesdays, we're going to do an ASMD with fractions: add, subtract, multiply, and divide. See if you can do all 4 of these in 3 minutes. Solve in your notes, enter your answers, and then we'll review. Alright, adding fractions. The first thing we need to do is get a common denominator. So I can make 5.5. 1/2 can have a denominator of 8 if I multiply the 4, or 2 times 4 I get 8. You multiply the bottom, you multiply the top. 1 times 4 is 4. Again, my common denominator is 8. Once I have common denominators, I just add the whole numbers. 5 plus 4 is 9, and I add the numerators. 4 plus 1 is 5 over 8. I can't simplify that, so 9 and 5 8 is my final answer. Now, same thing with subtracting fractions. You have to have a common denominator. Here, I'm already given a common denominator, so that means I can just subtract. 6 minus 5 is 1. 7 minus 3 is 4. 1 and 4/8. That reduces down to 1 1/2. Multiplying fractions. If I ever have a mixed number, I have to turn it into an improper fraction first. So I'm going to convert. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3. So I'm going to get 8 over 5 times 2/3. Multiplying, I multiply straight across, no flipping. So 8 times 2 is 16, and 5 times 3 is 15. I can convert that back into a mixed number. So, how we do that, if we've forgotten, we just divide. So 15 goes into 16 one time. 1 times 15 is 15. When I subtract, I get 1. So the number up here is my whole number, because 15 goes into 16 one whole time. The remainder becomes my numerator, and my denominator doesn't change. So my final answer is 1 and 1/15. Dividing fractions, anytime I have a whole number, remember I have to put it over 1 to make it look like a fraction. No mixed numbers, so I can just go ahead and divide. So dividing fractions, I keep the first, change to multiplication, and flip the second fraction. Multiply straight across. 8 times 4 is 32. 1 times 3 is 3. Again, I can divide that out. 3 goes into 32 10 whole times. Again, we can divide this out. 10 times 3 is 30. My remainder is 2, so that becomes my numerator. My denominator doesn't change. Hopefully this helped refresh your memory on how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions, and we'll do this again next week. Correct any mistakes before moving on. Today we're going to practice calculating the circumference of a circle, which is the distance around a circle. In order to find the circumference, we can use the formula C equals 2 pi r. And so to review, the symbol pi is a mathematical symbol that represents the number 3.14. So whenever we're given the symbol pi, we plug in the number 3.14. So let's use the formula to find the circumference of this circle. Anytime I want to find circumference, area, perimeter, we always want to write our formula. So C equals 2 pi r. As I solve on here, be sure you are solving on your paper. So I'm looking for circumference, so I'm going to leave my variable c. In order to find it, I need to multiply 2 times pi, which is 3.14, times my radius. Here I'm given the radius of 8 centimeters. Remember, the radius starts at the center of the circle and extends to the outside. So I'm going to plug in 8 for r. From here, I'm just going to multiply all three numbers. Because remember, when numbers and symbols are all touching, that means multiplication. So when I multiply 2 times 3.14 times 8, I get 50.24 centimeters. Now let's take a look at this circle. If you notice, the difference between this circle and the last circle is here we're given the diameter of a circle. It's the diameter because it goes through the center of the circle and touches both sides of the circle. In order to find the circumference, I'm still going to use the same formula. C equals 2 pi r. C, my circumference, equals 2 times 3.14 times. Now here again, my formula says radius. If I have a diameter, in order to get the radius, remember I cut it in half or divide by 2, because a radius is half of the diameter. So if the diameter is 14, my radius is going to be 7. 14 divided by 2 is 7, or half of 14 is 7. From here, I'm just going to multiply them all out. 2 times 3.14 times 7 gives me a circumference of 43.96 inches. So calculating the circumference, we use C equals 2 pi r, determine your radius, and plug it in for r, multiply it straight across. Now we're going to take a look at a slightly different problem. What is the length of the radius of a circle whose circumference is 56.52 feet? This one is different because it is giving us their circumference. It's telling us that of a circle, their circumference is 56.52. The question is asking for the length of the radius. Anytime in geometry that we have a problem with words, the first thing to do is draw a picture to represent the words. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a picture of a circle. It's talking about a radius, so I'm going to go ahead and draw my radius. Since I don't have a number for the radius, I'm going to go ahead and write r. Since I see circumference, I'm going to then write down my formula. C equals 2 pi r. From here with a formula, I can just plug in my numbers. Now though, instead of writing C, I know the circumference. The circumference is 56.52. So instead of writing the variable C, I'm going to write what it is. The circumference is 56.52 feet. Follow the formula. This circumference equals 2 times pi, 3.14, times r. I don't know what the radius is though, so I'm going to write r. I'm going to leave the variable there since I don't know what it is. Now I see on the right side that I can multiply these two numbers. So 56.52, the circumference, equals 2 times 3.14 is 6.28, and I'm going to drop down my r since I don't know it. From here, this is like a one-step equation. I want to get r by itself, so I'm going to divide by 6.28, the number that's attached to my variable. And when I divide that out, I get 9, or 9 feet, equals r. So I know that for this circle, the radius is going to be 9. Whenever you're given words for a problem, be sure to know which number represents which letter or which part of the circle. Now it's time for your practice. For each problem, you're going to find the circumference. For number 1, write your formula for circumference, plug in the numbers, and solve. Alright, number 1, I'm going to first write my formula. C equals 2 times pi times the radius. I'm looking for the circumference, so I leave C. 2 times 3.14 times my radius. Hopefully you saw that the 12 is the diameter since it goes all the way through the center. I only want half of that. I only want the radius. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. So my radius for this circle is 6. Multiply everything out, and you should get 37.68 inches. Make any corrections before moving on to number 2. Find the circumference now for circle number 2. First step always is write your formula. C equals 2 pi r. C equals 2 times 3.14 times my radius, r. They give me the radius this time because this line only goes from the center of the circle to the outside. So the circumference of this circle is 25.12 inches. Let's find the circumference for circle number 3. Circumference equals 2 pi r. Circumference equals 2 times 3.14 times r. For number 3, I'm given the diameter. Again, since the line goes all the way through the circle, I only want the radius, which is half of the diameter. So 17 divided by 2. The diameter is going to be 8.5. I'm going to plug that in. The radius is going to be 8.5. Multiply that by 2 times 3.14, and we get circumference equals 53.38 centimeters. Go ahead now and find the circumference for circle number 4. So C equals 2 pi r. 2 times 3.14 times my radius, which is 6.5. Multiply straight across, and we get C equals 40.82 centimeters. Great job if you got all of those correct. Be sure you have corrected and fixed any mistakes that you made before moving on. All right, go ahead. This is our last basic one. Find the circumference for this circle. So my formula is C equals 2 pi r. So 2 times 3.14 times, I am not given my radius again here. The line goes all the way through. So I need to divide by 2. And my radius is 4.75. 4.75 is half of the diameter. I'm going to multiply that by 2 and by 3.14, and I get my circumference of 29.83 inches. All right, so next we're moving into the word problems. Go ahead and write your circumference, figure out which number you're given, plug it into the formula, and solve. So number 6 says a container has a circular lid with a circumference of 33 centimeters. What is the radius of the lid rounded to the nearest hundredths place? So I have this circular lid of a container. It's talking about a radius, but it's asking for what is the radius. Since I don't know that, I'm going to put my r. It's talking about circumference, so I'm going to write my formula. C equals 2 pi r. Here, though, I'm actually given the circumference is 33. So instead of writing C, I plug in 33 for their circumference. 2 times 3.14 times r, because I don't know my radius. I can go ahead and multiply 2 times 3.14, and I get 6.28 r. To get r by itself, I just divide both sides by 6.28. And I get r equals 5.254. However, the question asks to round to the nearest hundredths place. The hundredths place is 2 numbers after the decimal. So I don't want this 4. This 4 is going to make this 5 stay the same. So the radius of this container, this circular lid, is 5.25 centimeters. Now go ahead and solve problem number 7. So for number 7, I have a jar of peanut butter that has a circumference of 15.7. That's important. What is the diameter of the lid? So this is a little different because it's now asking for the diameter. If I have my peanut butter jar, this question is now asking for the line that goes through the center all the way across. So first, as always, since I've got circumference, I'm going to go ahead and write my formula, C equals 2 pi r. I'm given the circumference, so I'm going to plug that in for C, 15.7. This is going to equal 2 times 3.14 times the radius. I wasn't given the radius, so I'm going to leave that as r. I'm going to go ahead and multiply this 2 times 3.14, and I get 6.28 still times r. Divide both sides by 6.28 to get r by itself, and I get 2.5 equals r. Now in the past problem we were done, but that's because the problem was asking for the radius. This problem, however, is asking to find the diameter. So think back, if I have a radius of 2.5, to get the rest, the diameter, if a radius is half a diameter, then in order to get the diameter giving the radius, I'm going to multiply by 2, because this side would also be 2.5. So 2.5 plus 2.5 gives me a diameter of 5, or 2.5 times 2 is 5. So the diameter of the lid is 5 units. Go ahead now and solve problem number 8. Always draw a picture to help represent the word problem. So this problem is talking about circle K has a diameter of 14, and I have another circle, circle L, who has a diameter of 9 meters. The question is asking for how much larger is the circumference of circle K. So first things first, I'm going to draw a picture to represent this problem. So circle K has a diameter of 14. Diameter is a line that goes all the way through the circle and through the center. Circle L looks to be smaller and only has a diameter of 9. I want to know how much larger the circumference of circle K is. In order to figure out how much larger, I first need to figure out the actual circumference of both circles. So C equals 2 pi r, write my formula. C equals 2 times 3.14 times r. If I'm given the radius of 14, in order to get I'm given the diameter of 14, to get the radius I divide that in half. 14 divided by 2 is 7. I'm going to multiply all of them together. So my circumference is 43.96 meters. Find the circumference of L. Again, C equals 2 pi r. C equals 2 times 3.14. Again, I'm given the diameter, so in order to get the radius, I divide 9 divided by 2, and I get 4.5. Multiply those three numbers together, and we get 28.26 meters. When it's asking for how much larger the circumference is, I need to subtract to find the difference between the circumference of K and the circumference of L. So 43.96 minus 28.26, and the difference is 15.7 meters. Circle K is bigger by 15.7 meters for its circumference. See if you can solve this word problem first on your own. To help you out, make sure you draw a picture to represent the words. So in this problem, I'm looking for the distance Michael's car traveled. I see that he was driving a car around a circular track, so automatically I'm going to draw a picture. Here's my track. It says the radius of the track is 32 feet. So I know a radius starts in the center and goes to the outside, and that's 32 feet. I want to know the distance Michael's car traveled. Well, if he's traveling around the track, which is around a circle, that's going to be circumference. So I'm going to write my formula, C equals 2 pi r. So I'm looking for the circumference, the distance around, 2 times 3.14 times my radius, which they give it to me, 32. I multiply straight across and I get 200.96 feet. That is how far his car has traveled when he goes around the track one time. The next question says, if Michael drove around the track 8 times, how far will he have traveled? Think about how you could solve this, try on your own, and then we'll go over it. Alright, so I already know essentially the unit rate. I know how far he goes in one time around the track. So if he is going 8 times, all I need to do is multiply. So 200.96, the distance for one lap, times 8, and we're going to get 1,607.68 feet traveled if he drives around the track 8 times. Alright, so great job today practicing with circumference. Here is your exit ticket. Solve questions 1, 2, 3, and enter the answers into the computer. Great job today.